I would like to voice in support of that ask from the previous caller. I am really dismayed to hear that even after an appeal that was heavily discussed, where Department of Public Works illegally cut down trees, that they're continuing to do it, and they know that it's wrong. So they're going to try to pass the Chris buck, as it were, to SFMTA or to contractors, but they are responsible for the maintenance and care of these trees. That is their responsibility under Section 805 of the Public Works Code. Keep in mind, this is the same department whose head, Mohammed Nuru, was arrested by the FBI on charges of corruption. That was only a few months ago. So what we're seeing is a pattern of a department that is littered with corruption and illegality. And that pattern is not going to stop very easily. And what needs to happen is fines. Fines for this department for this illegal behavior, because that's what it is. It's illegal. It's not just a miscommunication. It's not a mistake. Section 811 of the San Francisco Public Code outlines what those fines can be, and they're misdemeanor or criminal charges. And that this needs to stop. It really does. And I feel that DPW is possibly using the COVID pandemic as a smokescreen to deforest our city at a heightened rate because they are eager for the money that they get for these construction projects. But I also would like to say, don't count your chickens before they hatch. The Board of Appeals did uphold last month that this was okay. In the appeal that Josh Klipp brought up last month, they actually upheld that the appeal was approved. And so I really ask that the Board of Appeals deny these, the appeals that DPW brings, especially under these extremely illegal, very dubious circumstances, to penalize Chris Buck and those responsible for this illegal behavior, to fine them and to use the fines to plant new trees. We don't get our trees back if there's just a slap on the wrist or if there's a don't do that again. This serious action needs to be taken to make sure this is not repeated. This has a long history of happening. 4 years ago at 3500 Mission Street, they dug up a bunch of roots by accident doing construction before clearing permits for removing trees. So this is a long pattern of this happening. It's not new, it's not a mistake, it's not a miscommunication. It's DPW expecting the rubber stamp from this board, expecting that appeals will be approved, and then doing whatever they want.
30 seconds.
I just wanted to say, I live in Hayes Valley, and I understand the frustration of trees being cut down without proper notification. DPW seems to think that the notices that they put up over a year ago were adequate, and so much has changed since then. The neighborhood still doesn't know what trees are going to be cut, and they were supposed to have a replacement plan in place before they began any tree removal, which has not been completed. We were working on it when COVID hit and everything was paused. And this past weekend, we just woke up to the sound of buzzsaws. 9 trees have been removed in just 2 blocks. You can picture how much foliage was lost. That's 40-year-old trees. We still don't have a replacement plan in place. They told us on Tuesday, after only 5 trees had been cut, they said that they weren't going to be doing anything more until late July. And then we woke up this morning again to the sound of buzzsaws and 5 DPW trucks taking down 4 huge trees after they told us yesterday that they weren't going to be doing anything more. So I think it needs to be clarified that the code calls for notification 30 days prior to 30 days prior to removal, not at least 30 days prior to, but 30 days. So we have some notice of when our neighborhood is going to be ravaged. It was really traumatizing. And in this particular instance, they also need to have the replacement plan in place before they do any more removal. And I think that's all I have.
we're not intentionally throwing darts at you guys. And I've dealt with, you know, Mr. Buck prior to being on the board. He's a great guy. He loves his trees. And I know Chris is. I see pictures on his Facebook all the time about the trees. Chris and I are personal friends.
This isn't just an unfortunate misstep. This is a desecration of public trust. I'm totally incredulous at the so-called lack of understanding of process. These updates to procedure and training sound like half-hearted ass-covering excuses. San Francisco is part of the incredibly important Pacific Flyway path of migrating birds. They need fruiting trees to feed along this route. Olive trees are not an adequate replacement. More agencies and more contractors that impact trees, and do any of these contractors get any ecology training? I was under the impression there was a legal CEQA requirement for biologists to be present and for environmental surveys to be done immediately before work commences. The $6,000 fine for these 3 trees is nothing. And if part of the future plan is to have a zero tolerance policy for contractors on this, why isn't this starting now with this contractor losing their license with the city? When we plant a tree, it's a contract with the environment to maintain and be responsible for that tree, both practically with water and pruning, but also with process and adhering to the process of protecting them. Replacing these mature trees with saplings do not make up for removing the mature trees, especially in this time of hastening degradation of our climate and warming local temperatures. I'll say again, replacing fruiting trees, which are important for birds, with olives that have limited ecological benefits is not an adequate replacement. One tree is not equivalent to another. This isn't just a case of a couple of incidents of unauthorized tree pruning or removal, such as in this instance and in Hayes Valley. There is a pattern of behavior across a whole number of incidents of disregard of nature and disregard of the public trust. Apologies just won't cut it.